Okay. We're back. We're officially back. Oh, let me tell you. I have a whole strain. That's why songs like these, boy, they're important, you know, because USA, you know, USA is real. USA is very real. And let me see, 40 minutes out of my broadcast, gone, just like that. My goodness. I am beyond embarrassed at this point. Real quick, I want to say thank you to my segment sponsors. Pulsey Media Group, thank you very much. Truly appreciate, love you. When being in the moment is priceless, go ahead and give them a call. 754-999-1140. Link up with them. They can do for you just what you see right here on the night shift of DJ Kevin Stew. Not like what you see tonight, what you see the other nights. Thank you to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands. She's a massage therapist that comes to you anywhere you are in Broward County, North Miami-Dade, South Palm Beach County. Just give her a call, 954-655-9000. She comes with her table, her oils, and over 20 years massage therapy experience. You can't beat that with a long stick. Go ahead and give her a call. Schedule your appointment. She only has one request outside of paying her, is that you get off her table and go sleep somewhere else when she's done. Because if you're anything like me, you will fall asleep. Thanks to the Global Base. The Global Base is there for everything related to social media, music, marketing, you name it. Contact them, get in touch with them. DA Global BASE. Check them out online. You won't be disappointed. Want to say much love to McNeil Trucking. They are licensed and insured movers in the state of Florida. Veteran owned. You're moving from Naples to Palm Beach. You're moving from the Keys to Jacksonville, from Pompano to Pensacola, and anywhere in between. Give them a call. You're moving some stuff into storage. You don't have the manpower. You don't have the transportation. Don't worry. 954-406-9740. McNeil Trucking is there for you. With your goods in good hands. Thank you, McNeil Trucking. Without much ado, without much more stress, we just like a whole strain. Like Colonel Roberts says in that track that I started off with. We have a guest, and this man has been waiting. Let's see, which month are we in? We're about starting May.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah, and so this has been in the works since October of last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's been waiting for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to make him wait any longer. He's been on from early, and I have been tardy and technically challenged tonight. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Joe, Dr. Joe Oravecz.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Kevin.
my goodness.
This has been a great opportunity.
I don't know. I feel like I've robbed you, Joe.
Oh, I don't think so, not at all.
Nah, I've robbed you of some time here, and we're gonna fix it. Don't worry. I could have fixed your. You could zoom back in just a little bit. I can adjust that. That's a nice set that you have, but
is that all right? Is that okay?
I like it. I can fix it on my side.
Okay, all right. I will touch anything.
But in the meantime, let's chit chat a little bit. People gonna look at you strange on my screen because you're just really close up. But
I don't want that. I don't want to scare anybody away.
I doubt that will happen. But as we're here chit chatting a little bit, go ahead and tell some people who Joe Oravecz is.
Wow. I think I'm still trying to figure that out.
I love that answer. I love that answer. And people wouldn't understand how much I love that answer. Not because of what you do, but because of how many of us actually trying to find ourselves.
Yeah.
Just this past Wednesday, I was on my broadcast and was talking about finding and losing yourself.
Mm.
And so it's hearing you give that answer. Yeah, that's a big deal. Go on, please.
Yeah, I have to say that first and foremost, I am a single foster adoptive dad. And I adopted my foster son. He was an older foster child, so he was 9 going on 10, and BIPOC. And this was when I was living out in West, like Nebraska and Montana. And I realized that I hadn't found a life partner, but I knew that I had the ability of being a good parent. And so rather going through, kind of surrogacy or anything like that, I just realized at the time that there's a lot of children out there that need to have some stability.
That's a big deal.
And so I went through all the training that foster families have to go through. And I have to say that if every single person that ever wanted to be a parent biologically or through adoption, if everyone went through that sort of training, I think this world would be such a better place.
Wait,
So
I didn't even know there was a training for that. Sorry.
oh my God. Yeah, it is. And the background checks and everything that has to be done. And oh yeah, it is quite a long journey. And the home study that has to happen, all of that you have to be cleared. And I'm thinking, if I just want to go biological, that's not a problem.
Right.
But
Right.
but it's for the sake of the child, And so, but I just kind of realized, I'm like, gosh, what a wonderful world this would be if everyone had to go through this before they even became a parent, whatever which way. So that was about 15 years ago. And so with that, coupled with I had been a university administrator for about 30 years, working at a variety of universities up and down the East Coast and as far as west as Montana.
Okay.
And so my role was really overseeing all of campus life. So that's everything from admissions and financial aid to a variety of the Racial Justice and Equity Center, Native American Center, counseling, and health services, athletics as well. So kind of anything outside of the classroom, yours truly had to have that oversight. So I had just this incredible experience of really understanding a variety of different student populations. And that wasn't only for the demographics of age, because this was a continuum of all the different universities that I worked at. It wasn't just the traditional 18 to 22-year-old. This was a lot of non-traditional age students that went up to 60, 65 years old. And then also the glory of working so many different places around the country, of understanding the different cultures and the ways of life, from rural America to very urban America, from Boston to Nebraska to 30 miles away from the Crow Reservation in Billings, Montana. So to be really appreciative and learning more of what agriculture does for our country, as well as a lot of things that growing up on the East Coast in New England that you really didn't learn much more about in the Midwest and West, that I learned that I really have a growth mindset, so that I don't know it all. And I want to learn. I want to learn from the cultures and from the regions and such. And so through that, just really appreciated where the students were coming from, from their locations, from their lived experiences. And I realized that I needed to make sure that I walk the talk. So in in university, and I know right now with all the protests that are happening around the country, it's the one thing about a university campus is that if you can't talk, if you can't have good conversations, and if you can't challenge each other on a university campus in a good way, in a healthy way, where can you do it?
Right.
And that's kind of where I've learned, and really at a university campus, you ultimately learn how to learn. And that's a real key thing that as I was raising my son, I just thought this is a great experience for him to be on a college campus with amazing role models. My son, I just thought this is so. With what was going on at the time with him and his journey and my journey, what I realized that needed to happen more was, and this was probably in the early 2000s, 2010-ish, that mental health started to really have a little bit more of awareness. Still an incredible stigma, but I realized at the college campus, we had physical health, the health services, and then you had counseling services. And I'm like, we need to bring these two together, because you can't have good mental health if you don't have good health, physical health, and vice versa. And so even with those conversations, I realized that there's a lot more to this, and we need to start talking about it, and not calling it out, but calling it in. And how do we go about doing that? So as I was learning more and more about ways in which people understood and appreciated, or did not, of mental health, this then brought, I moved back to the New England area because my son was struggling big time. And so I wanted to get him into a good setting that would help him, because the trauma was kicking in, puberty was kicking in, and so all of that metastasized. And so as I'm managing that and going into therapy and really working with him and family therapy, significantly spiraling, but at the same time trying to also manage college student mental health, I started realizing, and I had the pleasure of being a trustee of a board of education out west. So I had kind of these three components of being a single parent with a child with special education needs and mental health needs, being a university administrator, and managing college student mental health, and then being a K through 12 trustee of a board of ed, that I was actually able to kind of bring this all together. So advocating for special education in K through 12, but also that continuum of K through 12 through higher education. So I realized at that time, with my voice at the table, I recognized my privileged, and how can I leverage that for those that don't have a voice. And so with that, all these different combinations, I recognize who I am and how can I position myself to give more power to those that don't have that power because of what we've done as a country. And so it was just really, really powerful for me to kind of then start going on this journey. Then eventually getting back up into New England to be able to see, working at a university in the Massachusetts area, as to how can we push this? How can we look through everything through a racial justice and equity lens? And as mental health is moving more forward into the spotlight, and how it's a stigma, how it's not a stigma, depending upon which culture you're a part of, how can we have more conversations about it? And bam, COVID.
Yeah. The game changer.
Yeah. And that's where March of 2020, when everything was going into lockdown, I was a vice president of student life, overseeing a combination of mental health and physical services, but also a D3 institution, so athletics, and students that were living on campus that had housing insecurity, food insecurity. They had no place to go, and everything is being locked down. And so we would never shut down the campus. And I never went virtual, meaning that, well, I had to but I never left the campus. I lived 1.5 miles away from the campus. And so I came in. My work ethic was, if we still have 1,000 students on this campus living because they have no place else to go, I am not going to be working from home, even though it's 1.5 miles away.
Right.
I need to be on campus. And we had students in isolation and quarantine, but before that even was starting to happen, in March of 2020, as we're going to get through this, I immediately, my gut, I had no data or anything to base this on, but I said, the emotional well-being, the sedentary lifestyle, the isolation that's going to happen is going to be immense. And so it's going to really wreak havoc on everyone's mental health. And so how are we going to manage through this? And that was just my gut. And I was just talking to my team and saying, we got to really think about this, because sometimes with my gut, I'm thinking, sometimes I wish that, and I hope my gut is not right.
Right.
I really hope it's not right. But we just started to prepare, saying, how are we going to do this? Because it's the families. We're really going to see the inequity of society with COVID, of the haves and have-nots, who's able to survive this, who isn't able to, and then we saw it just started to happen. And I'm like, oh no, this is all right. So how do we help our students? At the same time, my son is now in a residential, because he had significant mental health issues, and so there was a special needs school, which was really pretty much, I'd say, in a crude way, but it was an all boys special needs boarding school that was half an hour away. It was Massachusetts, where we were living, has an excellent special education system. And so I was very thankful that, quite honestly, that school went into lockdown and created a bubble. They never went virtual, thank God.
Really?
They kept the teachers there. It was all in person, because I'm thinking, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know how families did it. And so we have all this that's happening: mental health issues, inequity, just trying to survive. And that wreaked a lot of havoc personally on me too, because this, for 3 years, and that's really was COVID lasted for 3 years. And on a college campus, for those that might not know, you're running a small city,
right?
A city that never sleeps,
right?
24 hours. All right. Everything from the people to the infrastructure, it never shuts down. People think, oh, during the summer, what do you know? No, well, we have students that have housing insecurity. We have classes. I mean, we operate.
Right.
All 12. No, so
all through the year, yeah.
With that, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I didn't realize how much it took a toll on so many people, but particularly in the student affairs sphere, student life, campus life. We were the only really division that kept going. Definitely the faculty, they teach in semesters, so they have little bits of breaks. But it's this division that keeps on going and going. And so that was a lot, because you're in crisis management mode for 3 years straight. So I'm trying to balance the students' mental health. I'm trying to balance the employees' mental health. And I didn't have anyone
To help
looking out for me.
you. Right.
And I didn't realize that. And so kind of when we talk about, you know, the symptoms of burnout, what does that look like? Stress, anxiety, because you're trying to keep everyone going and trying to keep everyone motivating and such. And then it was finally, I hit a point where I realized, you know, I have to walk the talk here. I'm talking to everybody else that about, you know, are you reaching out for mental health support? Are you doing that? And what does that look like? And making sure, because we were just pulling out the stops for students as they're re-entering in the mental health, and you're just hearing it, the struggling. I was even talking to our student teachers and asking them what are they seeing in the high schools, because whatever's happening in the high schools is coming our way in 4 months. So because they're just right now, you know, here we are about to be in May, and students are graduating from high school, and in 3 or 4 months they're going to be freshmen in college.
Right. My oldest son is
so
one of
you're
those.
having a generation that just experienced, you know, two years or whatever, 1 year in lockdown, and have lost that social emotional connection because they all been in isolation.
Right.
And they haven't learned the skill set of even how to even talk to each other. So the anxiety of belonging is going to go up. So, to which that's what was happening.
Right.
So you're managing the adolescent mentality, lack of development going into college. You're managing the employees who are trying to manage their own well-being and their family's well-being in lockdown. And you're trying to keep things going as though that we're returning to normal. And even that phrase, when I heard even senior leadership talking about that, it was nails on a chalkboard for whoever knows what a chalkboard is these days.
Right.
But it was a nails on a chalkboard for me, because I'm like, my perspective here is that we're never going back to normal. We're not.
We're creating a new one.
It's the next normal.
Right.
And this is a whole new thing. And that's why my perspective was really trying to force that with everyone. These are just like, oh, we're going back to normal. We're going to be about how, and I'm like, hold on here. Those of us that are older than 24, 25, 26-year-olds, we have life experiences to draw upon.
Yes.
To kind of go back to whatever that might be. These adolescents, or these that are in their 20s, do not have anything to draw upon, because they're still, their brains and their social emotional intelligence is still forming. A lot of people weren't getting it. I'm like, am I too far ahead or what? But this is kind of, and let's layer the equity lens here. And to understand that we cannot just say we're going back to normal, because there's so many different communities that our students are coming from, and we need to just acknowledge that. And again, with George Floyd and all that we know was all simultaneously happening. And so with all these different components, and we have to lead, and this was key for me, through a trauma-informed racial equity lens. That is how we need to get back into our next normal. We have to lead with it.
Right.
And so there was my counseling team was they got it, and we just had to force it. I said, mark my words, this is where the entire country needs to start moving. Higher ed and a variety has to get there to understand it, because we're not going to make any progress if we don't have a lens. And if we're the only ones that are going first, then so be it.
You know,
and we need to do that.
You've said some things as you presented this journey to us just now that really jump out at me. You used the word sedentary. as you talked about getting into lockdown with COVID, you talk about going back to normal, quote unquote. Normalcy jumped out at me. You talked about being going through this whole training and vetting process in becoming a parent, and that jumps out at me. The whole contrast of you are there being taught how to become a parent, and a bunch of us are out here just becoming parents and learning as we go along. And it's for the parenting thing, it makes me think, wait, hold on. There's actually a guide for that? Where is this guidebook? Where is this training program that I can get into? How can I get into that? Even know, because parenting never ends. Then there is the getting back to normal, and the things that you thought about as we had gotten into lockdown, and that was miles ahead. You were well ahead of even where we are now. Back then, in thinking about the things that would be important, the things that need to be addressed. And that's amazing to me. Even before that, though, in hearing that, it made me curious, because I understand that this now had been your job. You know, these are the things that you would think about here on the campus, you know, looking out for these students that you are there to serve, and faculty. Because in being the head of a whole unit that takes care of everything that wasn't academic, you know, there's a whole lot of moving parts and a lot that you have to deal with. Recognizing that you too need somewhere to turn. That was a big deal jumping out at me. But even before that, how did you get to the place where you said, you know, I'm going to work in mental health? How did you get there?
It was absolutely when I got to the point that, and it got scary for me, quite honestly, with the anxiety and the depression, and that I did not know that I wasn't diagnosed with anything like that. I needed to figure out what's going on. And I reached out to a professional and I said, you know, I oversee counseling services and I need to walk the talk. I need help. It was that self-actualization. I think there's, you know, I've learned so much from my own journey of understanding emotional intelligence and just calling it out and really being vulnerable. And so I wasn't taught that. I think it's just more or less what I say as far as that growth mindset, you know, reading books from Brene Brown to a variety of others, Simon Sinek, and just, you know, those that I was just like, you know, just do it. And have the confidence that if you're not going to do it, no one's gonna, because I think my facade, and I think this is a lot of issues, is especially with leaders, with those in named positions, that, you know, everything is fine. You wear the mask, everything is fine,
right?
Because I got to hold strong and making sure, because everyone's looking to you. It's when you say, okay, should I be more vulnerable, and how do I go about doing that? Because I now, through my journey, I've realized there's more strength and more leadership in being vulnerable,
right,
than having a mask.
Right.
So what I ended up doing then was I ended up taking and I was very, very intentional in saying this, rather than a 4-week personal leave of absence, I took a 4-week wellness leave. And I needed to specifically say that because if I didn't, people would think, because I've seen too much in my career when people just take a personal leave of absence is like, oh, well, he's out of here.
Right.
Not coming back. Right. That's the script. That's the narrative. And I'm like, no, I need to think not only for myself, but I want to give voice to those that might be struggling with their mental health, that if I'm the first to ever do anything like this, it's going to help others. If they want to choose to do this, that they can see that a vice president did this and he was supportive. So I specifically told all of my direct reports that I am taking a personal wellness leave and I'll be back in 4 weeks. And it was with that an incredible program. It was an executive mental health that I was able to really dig deep to kind of figure out, okay, what do I need to work on to be able to be a better parent, administrator, individual, to be able to walk that talk. And it was through that journey. So through all my 20 years of overseeing counseling services, I had a director of counseling services and just a huge advocate always about mental health. But doing that deep dive and really learning about myself, and then understanding all the different variety of therapies, and just understanding where this opportunity for me from that executive lens and such, that I realized this space, there's not a lot of people that call themselves into this and recognize, because the risk of being seen as weak. And from that, I'm like, I really, and then after that, and doing even more work and talking more and more with people, I realized that the university environment, and with my knowledge and my experiences, is too limiting. And I want to be able to take my experience, but I recognize the power behind my voice and advocating and relationship building and networking that I absolutely love to do, to be able to connect all the dots. It's just something in me, inherent in me, that if I'm seeing pieces that are disjointed, I'm trying to bring them together. So if it's agencies, if it's departments, if it's communities, I'm like, how do we all work all this together? How do we link it, as opposed to, why are you doing the same thing over here and over here and over here, and there's redundancy? Why don't we all just come together to be more effective and more efficient? And we learn from each other at the same time.
Many
That's
hands
pretty cool.
make light work. I get the concept. So you got to this point though, after while in it, but there's a point to Joe where before this, because there's a Joe who was in college. There's a Joe that was in high school. Did high school Joe say one day, look in the mirror one day and say, I'm going to get into mental health?
C in econ. I figured this pops up again. We're good. And I figured, all right, that's it.
Okay, here. Okay, so that is back. So you can we can kill the phone.
We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, there we go. That's on. Okay.
Again, never have I ever experienced this.
It's all good. There's always first. There's always first.
Yeah. My better portion is listening in, and she's like, "Oh, you got this. You know, you're doing great." I'm over here pulling my hair out and saving face for those that are watching.
Not a problem at all. It's all good.
But so you it wasn't a choice, like, to say, you know, I'm like, you know, every child is asked, what do you want to be when you grow? I'm going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a policeman. I'm going to be a
Right.
firefighter. It wasn't that for you. Did you even think about mental health back then?
No. And that's kind of what's been, it was, I knew in college, it was more or less that I wanted to go into university administration, more or less. I was admissions counselor. I was very involved in undergraduate and all of that, you know, activities and so forth. So, and again, being a first generation, you have no idea, because there was no, you know, oh, well, you'll work for the company business and you'll do all, you know. I'm like, I have no idea. No guidance.
Right.
So it was just through people offering, saying, you know, hey, have you thought about going to be an admissions counselor? I'm like, all right, sure, fine, all right. and then so I went that route, and then I found out for going on to my master's degree that in going into student affairs, that there's fellowships and that sort of thing that should pay for your graduate degree in assistantship. So I learned about that, but I had no guidance. I only applied to one school. For the Ohio State happened to be best in the country for this particular program. I had no idea even about that. So I was blessed
Right.
for that. And then just started working at a variety of universities. And so in order in that sphere, in order to advance and work your way up, you have to move, because people get sedentary in that. And so I was progressing in leadership roles, and then I realized, you know, in order to get into a vice presidency or a dean, it's a PhD. And I'm like, what? I don't have that capacity. I'm not that smart. I know. And then I had good mentors that said, you know, if you have the desire and the drive to do it, you'll do it.
Right.
And I found the right program at Florida State University. And they said, you know, we'll provide you an assistantship and to be able to learn. And the assistantships really in this sphere gives you the work experience. So I was able to be a doctoral grad assistant in the vice president's student affairs office at Florida State. And at that time, and I'm absolutely dating myself, I was in the vice president's office when 9/11 happened. And so I was unfortunately, I was able to be on campus in that suite when all of that was happening, and I was able to be with the associate vice president, and all the crisis management that happened on campus, she took me underneath her wing. So understanding of how we as a country, how we as a campus, how we manage through a variety of students, and also managing my own, you know, because I'm away, family is up in Connecticut at that time, trying to figure all of that out. So clearly, even at that point, mental health, you know, how with tragedy and trauma.
Right.
So, you know, fast forward over 20 years later, just that, I think that piece right there of me realizing that how do we help students through their academic journey, because they're all coming from so many different components of life. And that's where I really started learning even more, because I worked at Syracuse and a variety of other, majority of my time in higher ed has been at regional public universities, because I firmly believe in regional public universities, because they really are sitting within the community to which they help the economic growth, the intellectual growth. It's part of the mission is to help the economy, help the community, and it's a good marriage.
Right.
And it's the true, authentic. It's the students that they're staying at home, or those that were able to be living on campus, but their community is right there. It's the true core of the community, because it's just, I mean, I could see myself, even though I went to a small private liberal arts, I can't justify a small private liberal arts cost. The affordability that is at a regional public university is equal to, and the quality that you get at that type of institution is the same that you get at a private institution. And I can't even imagine paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for a private school when you can get the same equivalent at a public regional. I mean,
Right.
the students are exceptional. And even when I was at the institution in the public university in Massachusetts, it was regional. And we had students that were going up against Harvard students in competitions, and they were winning. And I'm like, I can't justify going to private schools. Why graduate with all this debt when you have the affordability factor? And also kind of the students that really go, the majority of the students that go to the public regional are not coming from a privileged mindset.
Right.
These are students that are working not just one part-time job; they're working 2 or 3.
Yep.
Or they're a single parent, or all of this combined. I'm like, that's reality.
Indeed. Yes.
And so with that, and I'm being the vice president at the time of, talking about how are we managing mental health and so forth. So all of those, I was always leading. And I think it's just because I realized maybe I try to speak up for those that feel as though that they can't speak up, or if it's an issue that I realize, and this was even when I was a trustee of the Board of Ed, that some people don't want to talk about it, or this is a subject matter that I'm more or less just like, oh, I'm going to talk about it.
Right.
And it's Kevin, it's also kind of to the extent that I know my identity, and I know what I look like, and I realize that probably what I'm saying and what I'm advocating usually doesn't come out from a white guy's mouth. And I have the power to say this, and I recognize that.
Right.
And I'm going to say it, because others that don't have that power, don't feel as though that they have that power, aren't going to, for fear.
Yes.
And because of what hundreds of years has done.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm just like, well, it's got to start somewhere.
You ended up making a transition from institutions of higher education to South Florida, Broward County, NAMI. And there then started what I really titled tonight's broadcast as NAMI and Joe. Talk to me about this union a little bit. And in this 40th anniversary of NAMI Broward, and I can say with pride that the past 5 of it, I've been there. Involved in little things here and there, and I say that with much pride.
Yes.
But how did this introduction happen? How did we get here? You ending up, we understand that you have a knack for ending up in leadership roles, clearly. But how did you end up in a leadership role here in Broward for NAMI, for National Alliance on Mental Illness?
So it was when I was looking to be able to see, okay, is the time right now for me to, I mean, in part it was my son's journey, kind of seeing where is he at with additional support and help, and also a transition, because he was in a point to transition in a group home and such. And so I was just, and we've got some family in the Orlando area. And I still have colleagues that are in Florida, hence being at Florida State. And so when I was casting the net to be able to say, I want to intentionally move into more mental health outside, as I said before, outside of just higher ed, how can we connect more? Because the time is right now, coming out of COVID, that there's more and more attention nationally and internationally being paid to mental health and mental well-being. So how can I help with that? And so as I was researching, it was that NAMI Broward County was searching for a CEO. So they had changed the position and such. So let's kind of now be real and authentic, and that in the world of higher ed, going to Florida is not a smart move. Okay. With a lot of things that are being talked about as far as wokeness and all of that, so from the higher ed lens.
Gotcha. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
However, knowing how Broward County is one of the most, if not the most diverse county in Florida, and when am looking at all the variety of demographics, and then recognizing also that if there's at least one topic that has the entire country, if not world, but country talking about, that cuts across all political landscapes, mental health, does it. So how can I transition and leverage my experience moving my son back down here, and really connecting the dots in a community that, as I've been talking more and more with people prior to, as far as partnerships, relationships across Broward County, how can we expand that more? And that what I realized also, it's leading with mental health and well-being for all. And this is one thing that how NAMI was founded by mothers managing severe mental illness of their children. Right? Where we are currently with nationally is that the awareness of mental health and well-being is getting traction.
Right.
Mental illness is a component of a continuum of mental health. And rather than focusing on to start with mental illness, we need to start the conversation with mental health and mental well-being. And so how can we, because more and more people are willing to talk about mental health with the stigma that is associated with mental health is psychiatric hospitals. So that's severe mental illness. People in chains, people locked away,
straight jackets.
Right, bingo. That's the stigma.
Yes.
If we lead with that, we will continue the stigma. So we need to think more broadly, because what is even our youth, those that are in K through 12, and in college right now, they get it. They get mental health. They understand it. There's no stigma attached to it. They're very open about it.
Very true.
It's the family members, the older generations, that have the associated stigma.
Yeah.
Okay? Thinking always about the severe. When we talk about mental health, it is a straitjacket. It's being locked away. It's the state mental health institutions and such. And I'm like, we need to talk about well-being. And if we are talking about, and so that's where I'm leading with NAMI and in our 40th year. And when I talk to even our board, it's just saying, we need to do more outreach to the universities, chambers of commerce, businesses, companies, because our service providers, it's talking to the choir.
Right.
So I'm like, our work needs to move to the areas that haven't really broached it in a very comprehensive way. And that is where, immediately within, by February, we became members of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce.
Nice.
And never done before, right? And it wasn't the right time or the place. Now it is.
Right.
What has been amazing and wonderful is that the one-on-one, and it has to be one-on-one, and can't be group settings at this point in time, but the one-on-one conversations that I'm having with a couple of those that are in executive positions in certain companies, be it the networking events, when I just start talking about, and this is kind of with my own personal journey, when I ask them personally, what are you doing? What are you doing for your own mental health? And that has to be a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah.
Because that's vulnerability.
Yes.
And I'm like, but if you don't start acknowledging, if you're not doing anything, okay, well, we need to kind of talk about that, because your employees are trying to manage. If it's not, they're only trying to manage their own, they're trying to manage a family issue.
Right.
And in order to have happy employees that want to come to work, it's this holistic approach. So where is the C-suite in the company talking about mental health? And this goes beyond Wellness Wednesdays and EAP.
Yes, sir.
Because that's the typical, oh, well, we have this, everyone is able to go out for a walk on Wednesdays, or if there's a crisis, just call EAP, because we offer that.
Right.
So when I do have a little bit more serious conversations, I said, when we hire people, that we talk about all of our benefits, oh, you have your choice of this health plan and this health plan and this health plan, and we've got all these benefits. And I'm like, the generation that is graduating college now, they're expecting to hear about mental health from you as a company. So how are you leading with that? What is that? How is that being infused into the culture? And that goes back to, how are you walking the talk besides just being performative?
That makes me think about another area in our environment, our work environment. And I don't know if the reach would go the same way. Incidentally, I just heard that the city of Sunrise was honoring NAMI. Was this last night? Just last night.
We have a few communities that are offering proclamations that we've been really fortunate to do. I go to North Lauderdale tomorrow night.
Nice. Let me know.
And we were at Lauderdale Lauderdale Hills last week, and Sunrise and Coconut Creek. Fort Lauderdale is, I think, next week. So we have a few communities that are proclaiming through NAMI May as Mental Health Awareness Month.
Nice, very nice. I'm surprised you're not. Tamarack hasn't done this. Well, you know, Tamarack has
Tamarack
a
is
long
on
time.
the 15th, I believe.
Tamarack has a
So-
long time relationship with NAMI. Anyway,
No,
I know that
they are doing it on the 15th, I believe.
Yeah, let me know when you get to Coral Springs. I'm up in that area.
That's Wednesday morning.
Okay. Also, on the state level, because I don't know if the approach is to get to cities on the county level, then to expand through NAMI umbrella nationwide, or what the plan is. I don't even know, but being one that works, my 9 to 5 is in the state. From my 9 to 5 position, looking at what is happening around me, this isn't there. And I was fortunate enough to bring someone to NAMI Walks that just happened, who is in training. She is involved in training at a county level, at a regional level. And this was quite the experience for her. It was great connecting, interacting, and you know, being there for that experience. But it needed to go beyond her. And in order for it to reach out to the people who are at my level, the regular Joes, well,
Yeah, right.
but the regular guys coming in to do work, you don't have this happening. You don't have a person to go to have that one-on-one. It's just not there. And I don't think the general population is sensitized to the understanding of the importance of something like that. And when I say general population, I'm talking about those in charge. You know, I don't know if they do it for themselves. Like you said, the question to ask is, what are you doing about?
Yeah.
And so that would be awesome to, in our future conversations, to hear that this has been happening. We've connected with the commerce level, so we're meeting CEOs and business execs in these companies that are in our communities, but we're taking it a step further, because here it is. In these communities, we have individuals that are seeking services from the state, and the state can only give so much help. And the state only understands up to a point, because we don't have that level of sensitization. We don't have that connection. We don't have that education that is necessary. I haven't seen it at where I am at my level. So
no, and I agree with you. It's the monies that are allocated at the state level, and you know, I had a chance. I'm slowly in my meet and greets and having meetings even with our elected representatives, Christine Hermansky and such, already having those to be able to understand. So I enjoy the policy and the advocacy part as well. So I'm trying to, you know, it's a huge county, and to be able to kind of deliberately try to figure out who are the players, who are the relationships I need to authentically, and that takes time to be able to build. The funding goes with more or less the, you know, you have the severe mental illness. That's kind of what the severe cases will have money, and there's never enough. There's never enough because of the high needs that are. You know, one part that I'm really proud of, and this was before I got to NAMI Broward County, it was just in December, that Broward County School District approved NAMI Broward County going into the schools with the End the Stigma, End the Silence program.
Nice.
So that's phenomenal for us to be able, and so we're slowly moving our way through that, and we'll going into next academic year. It is absolutely, it's the companies that no one external to the company is asking the question, what are you doing about mental health for your employees? There was just one company last week that I was visiting with, talking about potential partnerships and such, that they have a really, really good, they were an outlier as far as I'm concerned right now, a really good wellness program for their employees that includes mental health. I'm like, okay, you're rare, which is awesome, and can be a good role model as far as when I'm talking. But this is kind of to an extent where it has to be one-on-one, and the last, since the middle, well, really since February, me talking to the executives has just been a test. I needed to see, is there reception to how I'm presenting this? Am I presenting it in a way that is inviting for more conversation? Are people off put? And I actually, quite honestly, Kevin, I was testing it to be able to, and using interchanging the word mental health, or the term mental health versus mental illness, because I wanted to see the nonverbal reactions from people.
Yeah.
So when I mentioned mental illness, it was kind of, closed off, wanted to switch topics and such. When I talked about mental health and well-being for all, oh yes, and we need to talk more about that. And I'm like, okay, it's just what my gut, and this goes back to trusting my gut even in COVID. And I'm like, I don't have data on this, but this is where I'm gonna roll. It's vernacular. It's just the language that we use, and this across all, variety of demographics and racial justice and equity. That language is so important. And to be able to understand what are appropriate terms, and I've got to massage that in all the different communities within Broward County to see, okay, well, what is a good way to approach this? And so when I was accepting the proclamation in Lauderdale Hills last week, I tested it, and I, as I was accepting, and I said, this is a tough topic about mental health, and it's not something that around the breakfast table or just getting ready to leave for school or for work or whatever. That's not something that we do on a regular basis, and that needs to change. We need to be able to talk about that and be authentic. And how do we have those conversations? And we need to do more. And we're going into schools. And so I kind of just talked about that. Just kept my comments to like 3 minutes, but just try to put it out there. And afterwards, after I sat down, I was just like, oh, I hope, I was as authentic as I am. And then as I was leaving, I had people come up and reinforce it, saying, you just said the right thing. And I'm like, okay. Because I don't know. and I just like go, and I have a strong faith as well. Go with what God is providing you the words to say, and just go with it. Understand the environment, understand the culture, understand you're a visitor wherever you go, and people have to trust you. And if you're just authentic, people will know. People will get it.
You use the authentic self quite a bit as you talk, and I had come across, I think it was the article that you did with Medium, where you mentioned the four agreements.
Yeah.
Can I tell you that book changed my life?
Oh, it's remarkable.
Round about the time of COVID, that book, really, notifications? That book changed my life.
Wow.
And I reached out to Don Jose,
Mm.
and he said, I don't really do interviews anymore, but my sons, I have two sons that write, that they do. And I was blessed enough to have a sit down right where you are
Oh my
with
gosh.
Don Miguel, who
Wow.
co-wrote the Fifth Agreement with him.
Oh my gosh.
And he called me up about a year later, a few months later, and said, "Hey, my partner also writes." And I spoke with her and him again.
Oh my
and
gosh.
and
Wow.
the sharing of someone who was immersed in Toltec teachings,
Mm.
with which was the foundation of the four agreements, that was a big deal for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the four agreements in and of itself literally changed my life.
Mhm.
And that, coupled with seeing a therapist for the first time. And, with me being Jamaican,
Mhm.
going to a therapist is
Yeah.
just like you said, with the stigma, the straitjacket kind of a thing.
Yep.
And even as you would talk with your predecessor,
Mhm.
she would tell you. And so when I met Sandra, it was an awesome thing knowing that it was a Jamaican that was heading up this organization that was looking about the well-being, mental well-being of a whole county, basically.
Mhm.
And that was an awesome thing.
Yeah.
And me getting involved with such an organization and sticking around, even if it's a whole day of activity, just one day out of the year, I'll
Three
take
more.
it because I talk about it all year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the journey, as we know it, is still in its creeping stages. It's in its
Yeah.
infancy. As long as it
Yes.
has been around,
Yep.
as many people as have been affected, it has touched just about everybody. Anybody that says they haven't been touched by some form
Right.
of mental health or mental illness,
Mhm.
awareness, or episode doesn't yet know how to speak.
Right.
And so for something that is as important as this, that is as ignored as it is, brushed aside, spoken about in hushed tones, it's a big deal. And when someone like you comes around, someone like a Sandra who has just moved on to other things,
Yep.
when you people are around doing what you do without thinking,
Hmm.
because you didn't choose these things, they chose you.
Hmm.
And as such, you can't help but to just immerse yourself in it because it is innately you.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to you talk tonight about your journey, your involvement, seeing your eyes light up as you talk about your interaction with the children, the students, other educators, as you talk with city officials, you just light up. You talk about even your journey to learning to become a parent. And I stress that because of its uniqueness. These are the things that everyday people are dealing with and not talking about. These are the vulnerabilities that people recognize and think that they're weak to have it. And as I've said on this broadcast many a times, especially on my Wednesday broadcast, vulnerability is a far cry from being weak.
Yes.
Because you have to be so strong in order to become vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's when we have these discussions, it's when we come to these realizations, it's when we, as I use in my motto, we learn to have acceptance through enlightenment.
Yes.
That we move to a place where we start the healing process. And the people who are involved in it every day, I tip my hat to you. Now, not to say that we're not all involved in it every day. There are some that are living it. There are some that are engaged in it. They're so immersed in it that they deal with their life experiences, and they're going out there helping other people to learn what it is that they're experiencing and how, finding coping mechanisms to deal with it.
Right. Yeah.
And when I hear you talking about finding help for yourself, big deal. Super important. Because the person who is giving the help needs help.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember asking someone who was a therapist, why would they do that? And they said, oh, well, I don't know. I guess because I need therapy. I got into therapy. And really and truly, you kind of would need to be in need of therapy in order to be wanting to help people, because it's a lot to take on.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so I don't have enough hats to tip to people like you, to organizations like NAMI and the affiliate organizations, the ones that step up and have booths and tables and are vendors when NAMI Walk comes around and the tent is filled up and you need 50 million fans in order to cool the tent because it's so filled with energy and information. When people come across organizations and people like you, they need to stop and really listen. Pay attention. Because they'll definitely leave out looking at their experience a whole lot different. They'll start to walk and realize, pay attention to where they're walking. Not the physical walk, so much as the experience of life. Now you start asking the real whys. Why am I doing this? Why don't I like this? Why am I running away from this? And to know that you can call up some people and go to a place and talk to some people that can help you to get answers to those whys, outside of needing to have a health plan that allows you to go see someone because it's not that kind of an appointment. That is a resource that everybody needs to take advantage of, but only if they knew.
And thus the journey continues, as you said, little by little by little.
Yes.
And I so appreciate that, Kevin, and I appreciate the space here because it is It's a lot of, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
But it has to start, and you have that, I can't remember the full poem, but it's the starfish poem, the one that, the journey that you have the youth that's on the beach and you have these thousands of starfish and a person says, looking at the kids saying, just tossing one saying, you're not going to make a difference. You got thousands of starfish here, and that story is just like, and the kid throws it into the ocean saying, well, I made a difference to that one.
Yeah.
So it's one by one by one. It does take time, but you just never know, if you didn't help that one, what could have happened. And so that's the journey. And I also think about, and I cannot remember who said this one, but it is how does it go? If it's not me, then who?
Then who?
As far as making a difference, and if not now,
When?
Yes. And I honestly, I don't know if it was Oprah talking to Maya Angelou or what, but it was just, that has just resonated with me for so many years, that it's just like, yeah, and that's always when I'm at the table and I'm thinking something and other people are not saying anything, and I'm just like, say it, for God's sakes. Call it in. And what else do we need to do? And I think that, we're able to make the difference through life's experience. And so we use those of us that have more seniority of life that to be able to leverage that.
Yeah.
And be able to utilize it. And I think that just becomes more and more with experience. I think that's where I am in my own personal journey now, in recognizing, just appropriately understanding the dynamics in the room, to be able to honor who is all there, but also call the question.
Yes. Joe, we're going to wrap up, and I want to thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your patience, first of all.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, thank you for offering, and thank you for this. This has been a delight. And hopefully looking forward to seeing you in person.
Again, yes. But
and doing this again.
We're going to do this again, because I'm in. I need the entire time. I'm going to give it a couple of months, because I want to give it a couple of months because, one, it'll be closer to NAMI walks. One.
Yeah.
Two, there are new things that you have been doing. The becoming a part of the Fort Lauderdale Chamber. That's a new thing, and it opens new doors, and it gives the opportunity to lay some foundation and come back in a space like this and say, this is what we have been doing right here in our backyard.
Yeah.
And if it can infect other areas, then great, because we're connecting to London, England. We're connecting to New York. We're connecting to Connecticut. We're connecting to Jamaica. We're connecting to Florida, and a bunch of people all over the place that listen to those platforms that are in those places.
Awesome.
And so, although we're talking about something that is local for us, you and me, it goes to everybody that once you're walking, talking, breathing, understanding in some way, shape, or form, it is touching you because it is you.
Right.
And so we will have this again. We will have the full time. We will not have these glitches that I have no clue where they came from.
No problem. All good.
But you yourself have done a little bit of what I am doing now. We haven't even talked about that. We haven't even talked about your theater life, which I found out to be quite interesting, and I learned of today. Today I learned of that.
Okay.
There's so many
to talk about.
There's so many facets to you, and we need to touch on them so that people can have a better understanding that you're not just this guy that is sitting up here that is unreachable, that is so far and different from us,
Right.
whomever us is.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So, Joe,
All right.
thank you again.
Thank you, Kevin. All right.
And
Keep up the great work.
you know what? I'm going to try because
We can only do our best, right?
I didn't choose this. So I can relate to you being
There
in
you
this
go.
role.
No, I
I
love
didn't choose this. This chose me.
It chose you. That's right. Phenomenal. Well, thank you. All right. You have a wonderful morning.
Morning, no, yeah, morning. Take
All
care,
right.
bro.
I'm going to
We'll
bed.
talk. Yeah, man. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
All right,
Take
good
care
night.
of yourself. All
Yeah.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Joe Oravecz, ladies and gentlemen. Whew, what a night. I want to say thanks to you all. Thanks to my affiliates. One Harmony Radio, NIE Radio, the Foundation Radio Network, Island Worldwide, Mix 102.com, Earth 96 FM. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Those who were tuning on the other platforms that I don't know of, thank you. Those who shared, thank you. As we get out of here, I do want to remind you to look out for members of your community. Your community is not just the development that you live in, but it spreads far, it spreads wide. So those you pass on the bus, the plane, the boat, the train, whether you walk, ride, or drive, these are members of your community. Do something good for one of them today because you never know who's going to do something good for you tomorrow. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world. From right here in South Florida, I bid y'all, well, still a good night. Although it's now morning, a good night. Take care until we do it again. All the best to you and take care of yourself. No, I really mean that. Take care of you. Because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of anybody else. You can't give from an empty cup. Fill up your cup so that you can share from your saucer. Until we meet again. Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.